right. We've already got some in the can. That's fantastic. Good morning, everybody. This is Doug, and you are listening to What's the Hazard. It is Friday, June 7th. Beautiful morning in Omaha. Although I expect something to change here soon. There's going to be some insanity later, I'm told.
Always.
But the last few mornings have been fantastic. I'm a huge fan of those nice, calm mornings. I'm sure you guys appreciate calm anytime, before the inevitable storm in your lives. We have really special guests today. We've done a series of episodes with public servants. Our good friend Dustin Talaco has been on a number of times. I had the Midwest Misfits on recently.
Oh, yeah.
Probably know those guys.
Yeah.
That's an interesting group.
It is.
These guys that are...
Interesting is a good word for them.
Rappelling off of stuff and climbing into shit that you're not supposed to... I did it. Sorry, Mom.
No.
Stuff that you're not supposed to climb into. Really interesting, and they are providing an incredible service. But you guys, first of all, thank you for what you do for our community. I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to try... Mike Manning, that's
there
pretty
you go.
easy.
We'll start with that one.
Jason Civitanov.
Civitano,
no V.
right.
All right. Thank you for being here, guys.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Omaha Fire Department.
Correct.
Omaha Police Department.
Correct.
Thank you so much for that, first and foremost.
Our
and
pleasure.
I know you are both veterans.
I'm a veteran. Yes.
Veterans.
Yep.
And thank you for that.
Yep.
Did you check out any of the D-Day stuff yesterday?
Yeah, I actually have an interesting background with that. So I started off my military career in the Marine Corps, and my first duty station was over in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate enough to be part of the 50th anniversary of D-Day over in Pearl Harbor when all that was going on, just to see some of the veterans that came through, hear real stories of what happened over there.
Unbelievable.
Puts a lot of things in perspective, for sure.
It's unbelievable. And as a man my age at this point, I've got sons that are 26 and 24, and I got a pretty late start on the fatherhood thing. And so I had an uncle, a great uncle, that was D-Day and Battle of the Bulge. And we always wondered why Uncle Cac was so weird, you know. And as a grown man, when you see that and just even the depiction of it, it is understandable why, Cac wasn't normal. Maybe I loved him. He was a great guy. I had an uncle that was over there and a grandfather in the Pacific. And oh my God, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It was remarkable.
I truly believe that you spend the rest of your life unpacking those few, whether it be months, years, or whatever that time frame might be.
No doubt.
And how you are in relation to what happened in the bigger scheme of things. And everybody deals with that a little bit differently.
Of course. Very interesting.
Our young men and women are going through that now for the War on Terror. They've been dealing with that for the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
But yeah, those men back then, that's a different breed.
Well, you think about it too. I mean, and we're totally off track here.
Absolutely.
We came to talk about your business. You guys are both full-time public servants, but also have your own business that you've started. And I was on your website, fantastic website. It's actually quite an inspiring website, to be honest, man. I mean, particularly for a guy who's never done any service. I wasn't in the military. I've never really contributed anything. And then I look at what you guys are doing in your full-time worlds and now in your private life business world. The contribution is amazing, truly amazing. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. I'm going to disagree with you right out of the gate.
Oh, don't. Please don't.
I think that you're selling yourself short. I mean, just talking to you, obviously, before we went to air, the background that you have and the experience that you bring, it parallels a lot of what we do. And I think as we get older, you start to see these individuals that have a passion that turns into experience that can turn into something, and how we can assist, help others.
Yeah,
okay. It's a big
but I'm going to be behind you guys the whole way, right? I mean, literally and figuratively, as we've already established. But the business is Stronghold Preparedness Consulting.
Yep.
Security, safety, that overlaps what we do in the occupational safety world.
Right.
And so I would love just to hear more about it. We started talking about it. We could have recorded the conversation before we started. Fascinating stuff. But using your two combined backgrounds from fire, military and fire service, and the police, sheriff's department out west and the police department here, you have put together a really amazing and impressive business. So Could you give a little bit about background?
Sure.
And then talk about how this came to be, and then the services you offer, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Jason Civitano. So the way this started was Mike and I were tasked about 4 years ago with evaluating and developing a response protocol for police and fire to major crises, specifically the active threat type incident or major mass event response. And we came together from the police and fire. We were both at the academy and started looking into things deeply. We brought in some training, and then he and I would sit around for hours, and we kept talking about adjustments and what is the key component, as Mike was saying earlier, that's being missed. And it probably took us a year, and we finally said, well, wait a minute. Once police and fire get there, generally, we're dialed in. We know what we have to accomplish. We know that it's time compressed, and the ultimate goal is to stop the threat and then immediately transition into life-saving. The police were not good at that. It was the old methodology of, okay, we know there's one. That's the information we have. That person is no longer a factor, and then we keep searching and searching and searching. The problem was people were dying. So we had to transition from the police side. Okay, there's no other stimulus here. We have to go into life-saving mode, get advanced care in with rescue task forces, so police and fire combined, and then from there, get them onto ambulances to elite care in the hospitals. So we kept talking about this, and then Mike says one day, it has nothing to do with our response. And I was, what? It's what we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. He says, it's the first 6 minutes. Before we get there, how do we help people save lives? And that really was kind of the light beam coming down for us. Mm-hmm. This is it. The problem is police and fire really don't deal with that. We don't teach that. We don't do things. On behalf of the city, we've done more than 100 presentations in the last year over situational awareness and active threat. But really, that's where it was limited. So we decided, listen, we've got to expand this and start working with school districts, medical groups, hospitals, faith-based community, any company that we can reach out to have an idea of how do we reinforce our daily practices, how do we look at security in our setting, how do we identify potential threats, and then if something does happen, how do we respond until police fire get there and we save more lives? Mm-hmm. And that's where Stronghold was born.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that preparedness piece, this piece that has to take place before the experts arrive.
Yeah, and part of that really is the mindset of walking through situations and getting your mind in the right space to have the conversation of, no, we don't want this to happen, but burying our head in the sand is not an option. So,
no doubt. Which still continues.
It does, and degree. I think the challenge has been, in the past, you have organizations that want to approach certain conversations in an aggressive way that doesn't meet the need of individuals. So what I mean by that is it's all about the blood and guts or the violence of guns and what have you. It's not about any of that when we have these conversations. It's about being able to walk through what your contingency plans are, anything from a slip, trip, and fall all the way up to something that's unforeseeable that we see on the news and unfortunately happens everywhere around the country. So how do you deal with that? How do you put yourself in the right mindset that you're not low crawling to work every day and worried about everything around the corner, but your head is up, you're meeting people's eyes, you're talking to individuals, you know what's going on in your community, you know what's going on in your family, and you know what's going on in your neighborhood, at work, what have you, and being engaged. And that's really what the conversation starts. And then when people are open to that, then we have the conversations of how do we practically put some things in place to make sense on various levels, from maybe an employee level all the way up to the executive level, so people can walk through how to deal with some of these issues.
I see. Okay. And so this is what you guys are doing within full-time work and in your private business as well. There's a significant overlap to what you guys are doing.
There is. Yes. So from the fire side, obviously still working full-time, and that's by design. Want to do that. Business is picking up to the point where we're getting a little creative on how we have to do things, but we're very fortunate in the fact that we've got a lot of expertise behind us. We have a lot of understanding clients, and they, at the end of the day, they know what they want, and we know how we can help them, and that's a good working relationship.
That is a good thing. Are you doing this all over the Midwest, all over the country?
We're actually expanding now, so we're going all over the country. We're working out in Nashville next month. And,
fantastic.
Yeah, we've got some other things on the West Coast here in the next few months, and then we got Missouri next month as well. Anyway, so we got a little bit of everything all over the place.
And so from our world, the world of my listeners, the occupational settings, some hospitals, medical facilities, primarily industrial, I know a lot of them have security challenges and issues. I mean, some of these have lots of hazardous chemicals. They have, lots of high-value targets, if I can use a phrase that I'm not familiar with necessarily. Are you working with those types of folks? Are we in those?
Absolutely.
They're coming to you?
So ours is going to be from the risk analysis standpoint. We don't provide security services, but we will evaluate and test the protocols. What I mean by that is, frankly, in the security world right now, if you don't have a lot of background with the firm that you may be hiring as a corporate CEO or a leader of an organization, there's a lot of them out there, and you see a wide variance in capability, understanding, and quality of people that may be assigned to your work site. So that's a big concern. It goes back to what is the overriding goal of the organization, and then our initial meetings with our clients is nothing more than a get to know you. What are you really looking for? I mean, we could come in and say, here's what you need, but if it doesn't fit your organization, you're wasting money. And frankly, we end up wasting time. We don't want to do that. We develop our plan and our methodology based on the needs of the organization. And that comes through multiple meetings with people at various levels throughout the organization, asking them what their concerns and what they think their problems are. And then we develop our plan from that.
So, for example, you have dust and tobacco safety solutions, medical component with workplace and industrial agriculture, what have you. Then you've got Midwest Misfits, who does more of the technical rescue based on certain threats within those environments. They are phenomenal at what they do. They're very progressive. They're understanding. They meet you where you're at. Dustin, I've worked with again for years. I understand where he comes from, and he absolutely explains what you need and why you need it. The challenge always comes back to people don't know what they don't know. So we start with that risk analysis. Let's understand your environment. What are your challenges? Is it theft? Is it arson? Is it any other type of operational or environmental risk? You have the hazmat, you have those obvious needs. But
internal sabotage or some
absolutely, you have
disgruntled employee that
workplace violence is on the rise, unfortunately. And let's be honest, we live in a goofy world right now. And but how do you navigate that without trying to be hyper vigilant all the time? But understanding your workplace, understanding the individuals you work with, you have to understand the environment. So we walk through, to Jason's point, we walk through what that environment looks like for that agency, for that business, and then from there we make recommendations. We don't paint you in a corner. We don't say, hey, you need this $3 million whiz-bang thing. It's a conversation of, these are the hazards that we see. Let's look at your policies and procedures. If you don't have them, we'll help you develop them. If you do have them, are they consistent with what you're trying to do? If you have 26 different hazards, do you have 26 different ways of approaching those hazards?
Right.
There should be some overlap and understanding on how that is. And if there isn't, we'll develop some training programs so everybody's on the same page, whether it's an awareness level for employees, maybe more of the threat management team or executive level from there, get some specialized training. And then from there, we validate it through exercises, whether it's tabletop exercises or functional exercises where we walk through some situations. So if there's a hazmat spill, let's walk through that. What does that look like? Is everybody responding? Is everybody notifying the appropriate people? Or is the right paperwork being done? We know all of that's going to come at the back.
Do you teach incident command as well? Do you
Absolutely.
teach any of those types of skills?
Yes.
So
probably a lot.
Right now.
And again, until the professionals arrive, someone has to do that.
And Mike's an expert in this field, so I want him to talk about it. But right now we have a client, and that's literally all we're doing for 3/4 of a year is teaching the entire incident command process.
Yeah, so not only within incident command, but the hospital incident command system has some subtle but unique variances to it. So again, somebody needs to be in charge. How do we identify who those people are, give them the skill set to navigate that 6 minutes prior to law enforcement and first responders arriving? And then we walk through the various levels within that. So it seems complicated, but once it's broken down and you understand the reasons behind things, it becomes very simple. And a lot of the skill sets within incident command, people already have within their businesses. They just need to identify what that means during an incident. So we walk through that.
So I've got a client. It is a hospital in probably within an hour proximity to Omaha, a fairly large hospital in this community. And we did some work with them on receiving citizens, civilians who are coming in that have perhaps been exposed to some type of hazardous chemical, probably more agriculturally based, but now they have a response. They have people that are going to don certain equipment, bring them into certain areas, but they don't have any incident command structure or training, and we don't do that. Is that something that you could do for them to help them organize that response? They have the capability, it appears, but no structure.
And that's where the problem usually lies, is that we have these capabilities. We know we're very good in these small little groups and subcultures, but how do we work together with other organizations, especially when, say, the fire department shows up and they have hazardous materials technicians that can assist with decon, that can do some of that technical specialist information, or put somebody at different hospitals to give more information to, hey, this is the material that we're dealing with and this is how we're going to handle it. Patient tracking. I mean, there's so many levels that go beyond that initial, hey, we've got a problem and Mike's exposed to something.
So we're talking about very specific information that relates to the occupation. What else do you guys do? I mean, like I said, your website was amazing. I was reading through your website thinking.
So after the risk assessment, and this goes really to incident command, planning, and other things, what we have found with a lot of our clients is when we're doing the risk assessment, we ask them, can we see all of your policies and procedures related to any kind of accident, disaster, weather, whatever the situation may be? And we get a look of, oh, yeah, we've got all that. And then they send it to us, and we read it, and this isn't a policy. It's hey, if a tornado comes through, go hide somewhere. Okay, well, that gives no direction. Where are we going? Why are we going there? Is it fortified? If we have to get out, if we have to escape, where are we going to? So a major fire, chemical spill, we've got to evacuate, and now we've got to account for all of our personnel. But they're scattered throughout. Well, do we have rally points? And from the rally points, what's our communication mechanism now to see who is there and who may be missing? And when we expose these things, they look at us almost mystified because they thought they had it under control.
Sure.
And then when we look at the emergency operations plan to where the incident command comes in, okay, who's responsible? Who's the incident commander? Well, Mike is. Okay, well, Mike's on vacation. Who's next? Well, we've never thought about
Mike is.
Right.
Yeah. And there are specific goals. You have the logistics part, the planning part, the finance part, the operations and logistics area of moving and shuttling people. And they put one person in most of the time by position title. And that individual may have no expertise in this area. Right. Well, our belief is not only should you have a backup, you should probably have a tertiary
Absolutely.
person because people are off, people are sick, they're at lunch, whatever the case may be.
People fold under the pressure. I mean, we've
got to fill this role right now, and we need somebody who can do it. The other thing we promote when we're helping clients develop this is forget about title. If you have somebody who is in charge of your maintenance crew, but they have a special understanding, maybe from prior experience in military or something else, and they can fill this job and they're the most qualified, put that individual there. Mm-hmm. They're going to get you the best product in this situation.
Right.
And it's getting people to wrap their minds around, get rid of titles.
Mm-hmm. Get past the ego piece of this.
That's it. It's got to be who can do the job the best. Mm-hmm. And once we start having these conversations, all of a sudden we're developing some really in-depth planning. Our basic emergency operations policy procedure package is 50 pages, and we cover everything. We'll put your plan in place with the right individuals. It's multiple meetings, multiple hours to do that. So that would be phase 2. And then from there, we look at, okay, what kind of training can we provide to the organization? And Mike, when we were developing all of this, the layered approach, and I think it's best if he kind of walks people through the layers. But from the base level of your boots on the ground all the way up to the C-suite, who is doing what and when, and what is your role within this emergency planning?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we could break down the whole system that we put together. And again, we'll go back so we can move forward. So we start with that risk assessment. That risk assessment, again, I had mentioned, it identifies the environment that we operate in. What it also does behind the scenes for us, it helps us identify what type of organization we're dealing with. By far and large, the organizations, and I think by the nature of security in general, it's reactive. Something happens, then we'll deal with it. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be proactive as much. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's the negative connotation. We run into a lot of checkbox mentality in certain organizations. Do we have a safety plan? Yes. Mm-hmm. Does everybody know it? That's not what you asked. You just wanted to know if we had one or not. Okay. Right. So
they have to know it.
Right. So yeah. So we have those conversations of why it's important, why it needs to permeate the culture. We want to build a culture of resilience. People need to understand the operating environment that they're in. They need to understand if and when something goes wrong, how they need to respond to that. Policies and procedures are awesome. They give guidance on what to do. Or they're just a shiny document that sits up on a shelf that collects dust because nobody knows what it is. Do you have them? Yep, we have them. But do you use them? We don't know what you're talking about. So it's bridging those gaps. It's making it part of the daily culture, and it changes. And if people don't understand, we identify those along the process, and then we have training programs for that. And again, it starts at that awareness level for every employee, and then it can work into those frontline supervisors, a threat management team if an organization has one. We move into the executive level because typically they're the individuals that make the final call, and they need to allow or understand the environment that their workers are operating in, and at least allow those individuals to go get training to deal with some of those situations instead of saying, hey, we just need the policies and procedures. And then from there, we develop and validate those. Do people understand? Let's put people in those primary positions. Hey, you did a good job. Now let's move you to a different position and let your backup take over. And again, let's have some learning experiences. And then we come in every 6 months or a year and just continue that moving forward. So it is that culture of resilience.
It is so interesting to me. We speak the exact same language and we use the same vernacular. Everything that you're saying is what we say in the occupational safety and health world, with just different expertise that you bring to the table. And from a preparedness standpoint, much of what we do in occupational safety and health is reactive, oftentimes reactive. We've had an incident, we've had an accident, there was a death, we have to do something. But I'm just fascinated by the fact that the concepts are very similar. It's just your world is crisis. You know, I mean, although you mentioned slip and fall and things like that, those kind of preparedness, but it fascinates me that we use the same language and the assessment piece and all of that. What I think would be really useful, at least for my clients, is the piece where you ask the right questions. Because OSHA, my former employer, has a basic, here's what we do for an emergency action plan, a basic shelter-in-place plan or something, the bare minimum, and that's what most people have. As you said, they copy that from the book,
Right.
they put it in a binder, they stick it on the shelf, and we have a plan. But nobody really asks them the right questions. What if this? What if that? Because the minute it happens, that plan is going to go right into the crapper.
Absolutely.
And everything is going to go crazy. And if they haven't addressed those questions or prepared, they're not going to get a good outcome, obviously.
So even with the planning, there's always that initial hysteria that you're never going to get past because that's human response, right? So when we take that piece in and of itself and we say, we understand this is going to happen, it's the preparedness piece that brings calm and some structure into the chaos really quickly. So now we're being proactive within this event because we're gaining control right now. We're getting the right people in the right positions. We're evacuating people to a rally point. We're doing a roll call in that area. We've got first responders notified and they're en route. We're providing updated information of what's occurring in this event. Now we are so many steps ahead in the response when police and fire get there that oftentimes whatever's happening can be mitigated substantially at a faster pace than police and fire showing up and they're getting yelled and screamed at. Now we've just got to go figure it out. So everything is delayed. The other thing, and Mike alluded to this earlier, and I think it's really a big component of our business. He mentioned we don't paint people into a corner. I think where we separate ourselves and thrive is kind of twofold. One, when we're going through all this, we're talking with the organization all the time. We're developing a cohesive group where we want to be a partner with you for the foreseeable future. We're not going to come in, sell you something, and walk away.
Right.
That's not our practice because even in police and fire, we always need to update with the changing environment. Beyond that, we don't sell anything. So if there's some sort of product or something you need, we have some very high-level affiliates that we can make referrals to, but we're not going to come in and say, hey, here's our risk assessment. And by the way, we have a plan here for about $2.8 million, and it will satisfy all of your needs. And by the way, we can do all this. We don't do any of that.
Well, my cousin has that business.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So we've really, and we have purposefully kept that out.
Separated those two.
So that we're credible. Our recommendations are based on training, experience, and professional understanding. And we give you guidance in those areas, and then we prioritize those for you as well. Hey, here are the 2 or 3 things that we think you should probably discuss and assess first. And from there, over the next year or two, these 3 or 4 minor issues, you can kind of work in and massage throughout. So it gives them the ability where, okay, we're gonna bring in Stronghold, we're gonna hire them to do this, and now they're giving us this package, and next thing you know, we're trying to figure out our budgets. That's just, it's ineffective for them, and I think it's a detriment when they look at who they're hiring to do this work for them.
That makes sense.
And some
Absolutely,
agencies and organizations are mandated through OSHA or Joint Commission or whoever they're affiliated with. They're responsible to provide these plans. The challenge can be, and for any site safety officer or any safety officer in another organization, the challenge is that all of these plans, again, are reactive. We have policies and procedures of when something happens, do X, Y, and Z. Imagine reframing that and having the conversation now that permeates the culture that states everybody is now a functioning member of the security plan. So me as a first day employee, I can come in and go, well, wait a minute, we just talked about this. That doesn't look right. Can I say something? Yes. That's a preparedness mindset. Hey, I'm driving to work. I heard on the radio it's supposed to start hailing today at 4 o'clock. Now, I'm aware of it. I might put together a small plan along the way, or hey, it's going to be 85 degrees and then it's going to hail. We have these little plans, these micro plans that we put into our lives every day. How do you take that same mindset and put it into your work environment? So when something happens, you create that OODA loop, and you are able to break down the situation a little easier. So if this happens, I can stop the freak out mode, and I have a plan.
Yeah.
It may not be the perfect plan, but I have plan A, plan B, plan C. How do I validate that? Well, through the organization, we have multiple things that we can look at, and it becomes part of that resilience within the whole community.
I have to tell you that, having spent a little bit of time now with Dustin and the Misfits and you guys, the preparedness piece is really ingrained in you guys.
Yes.
In the occupational world, we talk a little bit about preparedness. OSHA, totally reactive. We just went out and investigated accidents and, things. Just about did it again, Mom. I hope she's tuned out by now. But you guys are really preparedness. And I think the public thinks of you as reactive. But, man, so much of what you guys do is preparedness.
Part of that has really
remarkable.
changed because our skill set has changed over the last few decades. If there's a problem, who do we call? 911. Somebody will come. So we have to start thinking in a different manner of no matter what we walk into, we have to create some sort of plan of action based out of this chaos or confusion or lack of information or whatever it is. So we walk through mentally a lot of these things prior to even getting on that location. And once people start getting in that preparedness mindset, they really start becoming, it's the cheesiest line ever, their own first responder. They start understanding that, wait a minute, I have control over this. I don't have to go into this environment. Or if I am going in this environment, I have questions because this doesn't seem safe. You had mentioned on one of your podcasts earlier about cleaning out.
You listen to one?
Wait a minute now.
Oh, thank you, man.
Cleaning out a rail car. And, I responded to a rail car explosion where two individuals were inside cleaning.
I know that one.
So I would happen to be there for that.
Oh, no.
So the individuals, were smoking and not to get too graphic, but one ended up getting blown out and one stayed inside and passed away. However, we were there for multiple hours trying to deal with this incident. And that was a good reminder of these guys just went in to do their job. And they just walked into an environment that they probably weren't completely understanding what the inherent dangers were.
No doubt.
They were in a confined space. They had hazardous materials. And they're just smoking and joking inside thinking it's no big deal. Why is that? So this isn't to place blame on anybody, but absolutely preventable. 100%.
And blame was placed in that case.
It was. But it's not my place to provide
not
that,
at all.
So.
But it was, yes, just a lack of preparedness and understanding.
Right.
And that leads to a lot of the issues that we deal with on my side of the,
So let's take your environment, for example. You've got individuals that come to work. They work hard every day. They get here at a certain time. They have to leave at a certain time, and they work hard while they're there. They are not necessarily thinking about the what-ifs all of the time. I've done this for X amount of years. It hasn't happened so far. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay, I understand that. However, it only takes once. We have seen it in the past. We're going to see it again. Again, anything from that slip, trip, and fall to that rail car explosion to a mass casualty event. It's going to happen. The statistics are there.
Well, that's why you bring such a value to the table, because you live in a world where this is day to day. Most people don't see this every day, if they see it ever. Right. And that's why, why is the OSHA guy so upset about this? Well, I see this routinely and what the consequences can be. And you bring that same, which is why the questions that you're asking are so much more germane to the process, having built on years and years of experience. That's something that you can't do internally necessarily unless you have that background.
And again, you have to do it from a culture of preparedness versus fear. You can't come and say, well, I just came from this location where there was an unshored trench, and then when I had this, and the sky is falling all the time. Of course it's falling all the time. Through the wrong lens.
Right.
Again, how do we prepare for that? Everything we do is inherently dangerous. But how do we prepare and put certain procedures in place that we round those corners, make it a little bit easier, and we understand the environment that we're walking into on a daily basis? Because we all become complacent.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love this stuff. And I've said this to the other two guys that have come in, but everybody needs this service. Everybody that I work with needs this service because no one is prepared. Some of them try, but none of them truly are. They just got to admit to themselves that maybe we're not as prepared as we should be.
Absolutely.
Or a smart individual to come in and say, you know what, we feel like we're prepared. Test us.
Yes.
Make sure, wait a minute, did you miss something? Can we do something a little bit better?
Right.
Nobody knocks it out of the park 100% of the time. So again, sometimes we're just a sounding board. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes it's people being very open and saying, I don't know where to start. Can you help us? And that's what we're here for.
I love that.
I just did a walkthrough this week with semi-government organization, and they have some concerns, and one of theirs is the workplace violence and all the what-ifs. So I met with 3 of the management folks from there, as well as the safety officer who is bringing this to their attention. So we're doing a walkthrough, and a lot of it came around to the design of the building. How do we escape here? Because the layout doesn't give a lot of options. And so as we're talking about different strategies, the safety officer says, well, if we get them to cut into the wall here and create a door and an escape route this way, and the boss goes, listen, that's not going to happen. I just don't see it happening. What are some other options? And so I'm walking them through, well, you have some windows here. If we cleared this space, here are some options at this location. We walk down about 60 feet. Here's another avenue that you could create. Oh, and by the way, from here you have another door 15 feet from here. And the boss there was writing all this down. He's like, those are the things we've never thought about and that we need. But we bring that lens in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be the sky is falling. It's how do we work with what we have? If we want to make improvements down the road, all that stuff, takes years, takes time, takes budgets. We come in and we look at it from a practical standpoint. And I can't stress enough, and we keep saying the word preparedness. Preparedness creates resiliency, which creates fewer people getting injured, and the response mechanism can be literally a thing of beauty to watch when people understand it. And Mike mentioned earlier about some validation and testing. So we are big proponents of the tabletop exercises. Once we've done the risk assessment, we have the policies and procedures, the emergency operations planning in place, and we've assigned those individuals. We'll come in and we'll run various tabletops with different injects throughout. And one of the key points that we make is it's okay to make a mistake. This is training. We want mistakes. So we want you to be talking, thinking through the problem, working with your coworkers here, and let's make the mistakes now. Let's talk through those, and then we try and get them to develop a solution. Because they're in that environment every day. The best solutions come from within the organization. And then we just keep steering and guiding this training so that we're building on it, and then we're also building some confidence with our group behind the planning. If we have confidence, boy, everything else starts to become easy.
Can I switch gears here a little bit? I want to ask you, when you travel, what types of things from this preparedness standpoint are you thinking? You're traveling with your family, for example. Maybe you're going to a town you're not familiar with, or you're staying at a resort somewhere, going out to eat somewhere. What are you thinking? I mean, what's running through your head? Because there's a lot of stuff going through your head. Am I right?
We'll let the cop go first.
Okay.
I'll give you
this fascinates me.
I'll give you the story I share with everybody when we go out and we're doing some of our presentations. So my daughter went to school out of state, and she was driving our 1995 Honda Accord with 6.2 million miles on it.
Right.
Still ran great.
Still running. Oh, yeah.
So she comes home, and then it's the first time she's driving back on her own. And so everything is fine. And, of course, about 8 minutes into it, I'm starting to pace. And it's just...
How long was it that their drive? How long was she going to be on the road?
About 2.5 hours.
Okay.
And it's through... some of the interstate is through just farmland, country. And so I'm pacing, and my wife's telling me she's going to be fine, relax. About an hour into it, I call, and she's got the Bluetooth thing going. Hi, Dad. Hey, where are you? I'm driving. Oh, that's how we're starting.
Right.
That's not what I asked. Where are you? Dad, I'm on the interstate. Oh, Lord.
Give me a mile marker, something.
So I said, okay, you have a flat tire right now or your engine blows up. How am I going to get to you? How are you going to get somebody to come help you?
Right.
Well, Dad, what do you want me to do? I'm like, well, they make these big green things called signs. How about you look up every now and then, or every 1/10 of a mile? There's little green signs to your right that are mile markers. How about you glance at one of those? And so, of course, then be, oh, Dad, hey, Dad, you're braking. I'll have to call you later.
So this doesn't. You can't turn this off once it's.
No.
But when you're at the level you guys are at, you can't turn it, and you shouldn't.
And again, it's how do you put that into perspective as a daily occurrence in your life, but not be that hyper vigilant.
But not live
So we
in
talk
fear.
about the Cooper color codes and what have you, but how do you got to live within a certain range? You want to be up and you want to be aware and you want to be protective of those around you in the situation that you're in. But again, not so worried. Like you hear a bottle drop or I think you inherently start to see that if you become a parent. Because you be very aware of what
hypervigilant anyway as a parent, and then with your backgrounds, it's,
but I think that's just carrying that into. I mean, let's be honest. We all have the conversations with our family of, "Come on, Dad, here we go again." We know I'm going to sit in a certain seat when I go to a restaurant. We know that all these things are going to happen.
Dad has to have his back to the wall.
Those are just certain things, but it's that situational awareness. I want to know what's going on around me, not because I'm expecting something to happen, but I just want to see what's going on in case something does happen, and I have a plan. I know where the exits are. I know what kind of people are coming.
And
in
why
and out.
wouldn't you do that? It's so interesting, and I don't want to take up the conversation, but I went to a class when I was with OSHA. It was a fire protection systems and life safety codes. And they brought 2 consultants in who had investigated a number of those nightclub fires and all of those kind of things. And the guy was talking about, when I go into a hotel, I never go above this floor because the likelihood that they have a high rescue fire. And I always check how many doors it is to the exit. And I'm just listening to this guy. When I got home, my boys were probably 8 and 6. We were doing fire drills out into the, we're going to assemble across the street in the front, in their driveway. And we're going to, and they were up on the next, I bought the little ladders that you throw out the window. I put a smoke alarm in every room. Literally, when that battery started to go tweet, I mean, I had to change 30 batteries,
That's right.
But, oh my God, man. I mean, I was not even remotely prepared. And I do things differently now.
But now, again, it goes back to that kind of roller coaster mentality. So
oh my goodness.
Once you become aware, you become over aware, and you start to buy these ladders and all of these things, and your kids are walking around in bubbles and all this stuff.
No doubt.
And I get all that. But once you start to understand what the real risks are, how do you layer your approach to that situational awareness, to the environment that you, your children, your family, or whoever is in? A school is very different than a workplace, and the threats are very different from a police and fire standpoint or occupational health. But how do you take that environment, have consistent ways of looking at things, and again, it just indoctrinates into your life, and it doesn't become overbearing. Something as simple as going to the grocery store or to the mall or, whatever people do nowadays, they just go about their lives. How am I just aware of the environment I'm in?
And the real risk, I think that was... how do I assess the real risk, the most likely risk, those kind of,
yes,
without going overboard.
Yes, is a nuclear bomb going to hit and a plane crash?
I'm looking for satellites coming out of orbit,
Right.
Well,
how about so we always talk about structures, right? What are we going to do if it happens within here? Let's go to something recent. Kansas City Chiefs, the parade, and we have a shooting there. What do you do in an open-air environment? Oh, by the way, you've got your ear pods in, you're on your phone, it's already loud, there's thousands of people, now what? How about the Las Vegas shooting at the concert? Open air, what are we going to do now? Where are we going? And it's not that you have to be hyper vigilant, it's merely being aware, this doesn't sound right, the sound is coming from over there, let's go. Where are we running to? We're running to a structure, to a car, anywhere that maybe gives us some sort of defensive cover, and then we reassess and we can move further away. It's basic little things so Mike talked about the Cooper Colors Code. We can't be condition white where we're oblivious, right? Earpods in, on the phone, going down the street, can't hear or understand anything. Conversely, we don't want to be condition black either, where we've never had this conversation, we've never thought about it, and now we freeze. Because now I'm just there, and I'm an easy target for somebody or something that is not good right now. We want to be kind of a light shade of yellow where we're just, our eyes are up, we're looking from point A to point B, we get there, and then fine. Now we're back into our normal, let's relax mode, have these conversations, but it's just a nice level of understanding what's going on around me. And that's what we really try and get folks to understand. Little things can make significant improvements.
Interesting.
And it is really all of those things that come together. We all have that spidey sense, and we all know when something is maybe just not right. And it doesn't have to be a high-threat environment. It could be something as simple as we're going out to eat with the family, and don't put me into a booth that's next to 3 screaming kids. I just don't want to sit there. I don't want to listen to that right now. That's just being aware of the environment. Okay, I want to sit somewhere else. It could be something all the way up to I'm coming out of the grocery store and something just doesn't seem right. I'm just going to hold off in here. The challenge is we don't live in that culture right now. We don't trust our gut.
That's an interesting. I agree.
We have a conversation in our head and we justify why it's overblown, and it just takes once.
Right.
It just takes a car accident. It just takes looking over your shoulder and seeing somebody following you. To make you rethink.
I think that is somewhat cultural, that we don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to be perceived as someone who's making judgments or something like that. And so we ignore that sense that you oftentimes have that has been bred in us for thousands of years that, you're really trying to defeat. I was leaving this morning. My wife was out watering the plants, and I'm getting ready to leave. I'm drinking my coffee, just kind of looking into the sun. I got this, got to get my circadian rhythm set, I
like it.
So I'm looking in, and then this plumber guy and this piece of crap truck pulls up and parks across the street in front of the house and sits there. It's not our plumber. I just saw my neighbor leave and go to work, so it's not his plumber, and my wife's out. I'm not going to leave. I'm watching this guy. What's he doing? It kind of just put up a red flag. And so he finally gets out, and he walks up to the neighbor and knocks on the door, and I just kind of stare at him. And the neighbor doesn't come, so he gets back in his truck and drives off. But, man, I can't leave,
Yeah, I get it.
What the hell's going on here?
Right. And when did that become a bad thing? You're aware of the environment. Again, I don't think it's singling anybody out to verify, are you in the right place, or at the very least, I'm helpful. Hey, can I help you find an address? Are you looking for something? I live in a goofy neighborhood. I get turned around all the time. I get that. Can I help you out with that? But we see it something from larger events, even the tornado, unfortunately, that came through. So people were questioning, well, why are you trying to block people from coming into the neighborhood to help and what have you? Well, not everybody there is there to help.
Right.
But do we need to make a mass communication of saying, hey, nobody help because we're worried about one specific type of individual that's trying to take advantage of the situation? No, it's awareness on our end. We make other people aware, and we have a job to do because people are in real crisis right now.
Can you tell me what you guys do on your respective departments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we're running out of time. The hour goes by so quickly.
It does.
But just a little bit of your, what you're doing now with the Omaha Police.
Yeah, I'm a full-time academy instructor.
Awesome.
I wear a lot of hats there. Primary assignment is to Firearms and Tactics Group. From there, I also work with the Arrest Control Team. I teach all the de-escalation, crisis communication, use of force report writing, effective report writing, and various other things that I assist with. I do expert work as well. For within the department and then around the community and the state. And so I keep a very busy schedule on that end. Prior to that, I've been in SWAT team leader, canine handler, patrol investigations, Marshall's fugitive team. I've had a great career, and it's coming to an end here in the next few years.
Will you just slide into this a little bit more then? You'll have more time for the business?
Goal is the day I retire, this is going to be my next career.
Fantastic.
And we've built our business model off of that. We've also brought in some very high-level consultants that we have to assist us, and so it's been a great venture here, and we're going into the next phase, which is something that Mike and I are really looking forward.
Very exciting. Yeah, fantastic. That's an amazing career, and I love the de-escalation piece. I think that is that something that is in high demand? People are interested in learning how to do that.
It is, and the reason is you need to understand the individual first that you're dealing with before you can de-escalate. And so our training within the police department and the training that Mike and I do really goes around two types of people, somebody in conflict versus somebody in crisis. Those are handled distinctly different. And once I have an understanding of what this person is, now I go into the problem-solving phase. The goal is try and have them solve the problem with you, if that's possible. And then if not, if this becomes something that I'm assessing that could be escalating and I can't handle it, I need to get some more people there. And maybe it's just coworkers or supervisors, or maybe I do need to call 911 because this is really escalating quickly. So we talk through all of those different stages, but we really focus on how to understand the person and understand yourself. That's the key. Because if I get goaded into this screaming match, well, now I'm just escalating it. I'm not problem solving it. I'm making it infinitely worse. And it's understanding that. Or if it's something that I can't handle, well, maybe you're better prepared. And then I just transition it to you. And then we problem solve as a team.
Interesting. Fantastic. You seem like a very calm sort of guy. You seem like I'm de-escalated just sitting here next to you.
It depends on the situation.
I'm sure that's true.
The older I've gotten, the better I've gotten. I wasn't always this way, I assure you.
I would agree.
I've had to grow into it. I've had to do a lot of self-reflection, and probably really only the last 10 years is when I've really gotten significantly better at this side of the house, and it's because I went to all the training and I took interest in it. I transitioned out of the SWAT world, and now I'm one of our crisis negotiators, hostage negotiators. Two different worlds.
Completely different.
And it is how you approach it. I think if you have a background of where you were kind of that
alpha
guy, absolutely, and you got worked up and you had to fight every fight, and I mean, anybody could attest to me 15 years ago, I was that guy. I totally understand, but through age, wisdom, experience, and
fatherhood,
and really degree, just
right?
taking again that reflection of this isn't necessarily who I want or need to be at this time all the time. Do we still have that in us? Yeah, because that's part of the process. That is part of
it's part of what led you to the career in the first place. That's innate in you, and it's just you just have a better handle on it or a better understanding of it, perhaps. And you're also an instructor, and you're
So I spent coming up on 18 years now with Omaha Fire. I spent the last 3 years as the medical training officer for the department. So I took care of the medical training side for EMTs, paramedics, and various programs within that. And prior to that, I spent a majority of my career in the technical rescue world, so much where Dustin and the Misfits were at. Matter of fact, we are in the same station, the Misfits and I, some of them. Different shifts. So, they're phenomenal people.
Yeah, they seem like great
They're very
guys.
progressive, and there's an understanding there that if a situation like that comes in, I want those types of people to be there to think through the problem and fix it. So I've been very fortunate in my career in the last 18 years. Prior to that, I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps and 2 in the Army after that. So I had mentioned to you I had a family that was law enforcement background. So when I left the military, I was ready to start my law enforcement career, and they said absolutely not. I think that's a poor choice. So
multi-generational law
yes, all the way back to the late 1800s on my father's side. So pretty interesting. And so again, I had that need for service coming out of the military. That was a difficult time to try to transition and try to find yourself at a later age. So the fire service was a natural fit. I've enjoyed it, and I've had a lot of opportunities there. So it has built on my skill set from previous times. So
fantastic. Guys, this is amazing. The company, Stronghold Preparedness, Mike, Jason, the owners, remarkable. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
No,
Truly,
we appreciate it. Thank you.
it is amazing. And as you were talking, I see the need in all of my clients. Again, I've said this every time when Dustin and when the Misfits were on, they need your services. We need to get you in front of all of these companies to be at least assessing and critiquing and helping in the preparation side, because, this isn't intended to be reactive. It's intended to be anticipatory, preparatory,
right,
whatever that is. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
We appreciate the opportunity.
Would you walk me to my car?
You're a big guy. You're going to
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm going to post all their contact information in the liner notes and on the website. Get in touch with them and get them out on your sites and get started. So hope everybody has a good weekend. Thanks.
Take care.
Talk to you later.
Bye.